Or maybe we'll just go to the.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Lumber. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good.
You sound great.
This microphone's crazy. Welcome to this week's episode of the Lumber Word, episode 116. Charles De La Torre, Matt Beamer, Greg Riley, Ashley Buckholt. So what were we talking about? What we're going to eat in Montreal next week?
Yeah. Oh. I mean, maybe we can have maybe there'll be some.
What'd you call it? What'd you call a ham and cheese sandwich? What was that?
A croque monsieur. Croque monsieur.
I feel like you sound like Pepe Le Pew when you say that.
Oui.
I mean, no offense against people that speak French. I don't run into people that speak French very often where I live.
I mean, you're gonna get a great, gonna get an eye-opening experience. Next week in Montreal, it's a very beautiful language. There's nothing nicer than when you get like a very very nice young woman that'll speak to you in French.
I won't be doing that though.
Charles,
that's a great answer.
You're in for a treat, dude. It's a beautiful city. There's a lot of history there. Ashley and I one time spent half a day walking around the city and visiting old buildings and taking pictures. And it's a beautiful place. And there's a lot of cool people. It's a very European, much more formal atmosphere than what you're used to in South Carolina. A lot of beautiful people walking around and a lot of great food. Really, it's one of my favorite places.
Much more formal than what you're used to, Charles. It's not anything outside of Bishopville is more formal than what you're used to.
Oh, so should I upgrade my wardrobe?
No, no, absolutely not.
No, you'll never be able to upgrade it enough if you go to Montreal.
Yeah, no. You know what? You got to be yourself, man. Be yourself.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
you got to have
unlimited. It's nothing wrong with that.
Do you have any jorts and a tie that matches?
I should have sent you a pic here. Let me see if I got this picture.
I hope you have a jean suit coat with some jorts and a denim tie
and a big collar a big floppy 1970s collar.
So the best part about this story is you talk about some really regional dress code, right? That you're describing, for lack of a better way to describe it. And you want to see what Mitchell's pants looked like for the horse race?
He had pants on. Did he have pants on?
He did have pants on.
He asked those chaps.
See, the village people edition.
Look at this.
Audition.
He got Kid Rock. He did those from Kid Rock?
No, those are John Daly pants.
Those are John Daly's. They have little pockets for teas and everything. Yeah, seriously, that's exactly.
Is he old enough to drink yet?
Mitchell, yeah, he turned 21 yesterday.
Okay, so he's probably got a fifth of Jack Daniels or some vodka in the cart with him then.
No, we got drunk at the cow pasture last night, Chris and him.
So
just another Tuesday night, baby.
Here bright and early at 7 a.m. You boys can't hang. That's fine.
We got a lot of lumber stuff to talk about today.
Really?
Quick recap, right, of the market last week since our last update. Good volume last week, kind of across the board, and then it slowed a little bit toward the end of the week. It feels to me, I could tell out of the spruce mills up in the different parts of Canada, a few are quoting as of last week if they could sneak it across the border quickly. Some are quoting with tariff attached. I don't think many people are buying that. But I can tell you that they're still making lumber, right? And my guess is they're selling a lot less than they're making north of the border. The spread continues to be wide on Southern Pine, although the Southern Pine 4-inch seems to be printing up a little bit. We'll talk about that in the contract when we talk about the new contract. Hem-fir, the coastal stuff in the western BC. Matt, I'll let you follow up on that. But nice upprint on 2x4 number 2 coastal hem-fir on Wednesday. It was a ripper kind of on that item. And
Matt called that last week, by the way.
Yeah, he did, by the way. And I'm curious,
I just love that I'm in the presence of greatness once a week. It makes me feel good, Greg.
You know what, Charles? Any week it could be you. Any week.
There you go.
It's not because I'm not you, Greg.
Any week. You're come on up, step up.
Do you want me to talk about The coastal side, the west,
Yeah,
the
go on.
western
Yeah,
United
talk
States.
to us about what happened on the coastal side. What's going on? What are we missing here? Like, I was surprised to see a big print up on hem for coastal.
Well, I mean, it's a combination of two different things. One is it was probably undervalued on print in the first place, and and then two, the fact is there's just not a lot of two before being produced out west in dry hem fur on the coastal regions. There's a little bit of it you can buy in the inland region, and it's just a little bit more expensive than the hemlock prices. To tell you the truth, there's a lot of convergence between species right now on western lumber. So whether it's spruce or Doug fir or hem fir or white fir out of the inland, or even SPF South out of the inland, when you go to buy it, you're paying kind of within about a $10 or $20 window for all four of those things delivered. And that's coming in less than the price of the tariff included Canadian price today, right? So that price would be in the low 700s. Some mills are trying to sell some 2x4 randoms in the low 700s, and then the Western lumber's going in around 670, like right around the futures number.
Yeah. So how often, Matt?
I will say this, by the way, we're busier in the U.S. and our reload business is busier in the western half of the United States than what you're seeing up in Canada. You know, we are definitely. It's not electric or anything. It's not like we're setting new price records, but there's orders every day, and we're definitely selling production out of our inventory and out of our sawmills. You couldn't say the same thing about most of the Canadian mills, including ours, right? I mean, we're not selling production out of our 3 Canadian mills at the moment. But once we have more clarity with the Liberation Day, whatever you want to call it, then tomorrow will be a different discussion.
So, one of the interesting things to me, Matt, is in the East, I've got a handful of mills that are selling, they're selling, tariff in, whatever it is. This is our price. And the thing that I've been most surprised is that they're not selling that much lumber at that price. And they got wood for like 1 week out. And then I contrast that with a number of mills that haven't been selling, ours included. We're going to have 3 weeks worth of inventory piled up next week. And I just think I go like, I mean, we had this discussion last week, and I don't know if you were still on it, but I mean, tariffs already built into the pricing today. And, whether there's, a 10% tariff, a 20% tariff or nothing, I don't know that that's going to, do anything other than have a whole bunch of people go, yeah, my mill net is now something different than I thought it was. Does that make any sense at all?
No, look, this isn't the first time we've been through this, right? We did this in January. We did it in February. We did it in March. Now we're going to do it
in November.
Promise. Right. I've been skeptical, not quite as adamantly skeptical about there being a tariff as Greg was, where he was willing to put a tower of seafood bed on it. But I have been skeptical of that idea all along. And I've been publicly telling you guys that if the board's up around 700, I want to be a seller. 700 and higher. I'm skeptical of the market going higher than that, with or without a tariff, in these conditions economically that we are in right now. So, prove me wrong. I want the board to go to 800. That's great. I would love it. We'd all make more money, and I'll take a loss on my futures position, but I'll make it back in my physical inventory, and I'll have some new trading opportunities that come up in May and June because of it. That's fine. I don't think anyone begrudges higher prices if we can actually get there. What I'm saying is I don't see anything that in the last 90 days. I'm not hearing anything from my customers for the next 90 days that tells me we're going up $100 from here with or without a tariff. In fact, I think the biggest risk is to the downside, because if we don't get the full 25% today at 1 o'clock when Trump comes on and does his press conference, it's going to be met as a negative. If we get a 5% or a 10%, it'll be seen as a loss. And all the guys that are speculative along the board are going to get flushed out. And the only people that are going to win are the people that sold the board. Right.
Yeah,
and I don't think
Matt,
that our industry hasn't really been selling the board either. So it's like, who's
But
who's going to
you
have
look
the
at it, and
most
you know,
pain?
I mean, the pricing on it is telling you that, hey, I mean, it's a very modest premium to the current cash market, not a substantive premium. It is a modest premium, though.
there we go. How's this? Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we miss you saying something?
No. I don't think you guys ever miss when I say something.
No,
I'm curious.
moderator
Are
is
you
still
actually
here, Greg.
are you actually using your $5,000 microphone, or is it just your headset?
I am, and I updated the software on it, which
Well, you got an echo that you didn't have before.
I have
That's
I have an updated software on it, which is like when I update my iPhone and it doesn't work for a week. So
sounds about right.
So, but Matt, to your point, Ashley came into me today and went, so, like, you know, what do you like? Why would we not sell futures? We can't. You know, sales are. You know, we're selling some stuff every day, but there's not a lot of excitement. Like, you know, you're selling at a premium. You know, like, why wouldn't you do that? I went, you know, yeah, absolutely, right. You know, to your point, Matt, is, you know, when you're hedging and you're managing risk on your inventory, it's like, you know, and I do this all the time, is I tell HQ, I say, yeah, I hope I lose money on this.
yeah, and we also had the conversation. It would be better for us to be a tariff, because then we make a lot more on our inventory, because if the market
goes up,
if the market does sell off, right? If it does sell off, or if there is no tariff, what kind of air pocket do we have?
It's a steep one.
I mean,
I don't really know, because here's another interesting twist to this. Is there? Greg talks about mills needing to sell some lumber. I think customers need to buy some lumber also, right? I mean, I do feel like there's more to come on the buy side, but it'll be really interesting to watch this market unfurl itself over the next 30 to 45 days, with or without the actual implementation of a tariff. And
so
I
I
don't know. I just look interesting situation.
So I just read an interesting article today in the Wall Street Journal, and it was about like a regional builder, and what he's done, you know, over the last several months. And, you know, lumber's a small part of what it is, and, you know, about how he's gotten, you know, 50 letters from different suppliers about how much their prices are going to go up, whether it's, you know, roofing or drywall or refrigerators or garage doors. And it's all about, you know, the things that he's done to either buy and stockpile some of these items that he's been able to, or, you know, try and quote unquote lock in a price that's somewhere between what he was paying and what the proposed price is going to be. And I just wonder, you know, how much of that has happened. And then sharing that they've had people canceling contracts of late, for the reason being is they're unsure of what things are going to be like. And I said, you know, I mean, and we've had a lot of conversation lately about, you know, the tariffs, and they're unsettled and this and that and the other. I don't think you can underestimate. I mean, U.S. consumer confidence is at the lowest level that it's been in a long time. I don't have the exact number, but I know it's down. You know, I don't think you can underestimate how much damage has been done to the psyche of people about what the future is going to be as a result of things being so unsettled.
There's a lot of uncertainty, and I think Greg, you hit the nail on the head, and I think Matt's right in a majority, 99.9% of what he said as well. I mean, there's an air pocket, but there's also a point where people are. There's a number. Everybody's got a number. Everybody's fighting it right now, so they're trying not to ladder up. They're buying exactly what they need for when they need it, and that's it. To wait and see, right? Because they pulled a lot of business forward back in February at lower prices than we're at today, and they feel kind of satiated, and there's a safe spot to kind of settle, right? I know a couple major distribution guys that have had some of their biggest warehouse direct months in like 3 or 4 years since COVID, right? So that tells you right there that there's pent up demand, but it's all about a number. And everybody, once they get that number, there is going to be a lot of buying. But the question is, how long does that last on the backside of it? That's the real true gray area.
Can I ask?
Because there is a sweet spot.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that, Charles?
Yeah.
How much cheaper is Southern Pine going to get if they have a number? So it must not be a number on Pine or OSB because we're already at low numbers, in my opinion. Not
necessarily. Well, I mean, you look at some of the pine trims that business that's transacting in the Southeast. I mean, you're talking about guys that quoted and got business in Q3, Q4 last year at those levels, right?
Yeah.
And now you're $100 over that.
Well, but that was just taking cheap business. That was lunging at business, right? I mean,
there's a lot of people in the market that did that because they didn't have a choice, right? I mean, there was a lot of people that wanted business for Q1. And there's a lot of guys that bought at the end of last year and put it up and said, I'll just wait and see. And then they're going hand to mouth on some other business that they may have won later in Q1. But,
I'm not disagreeing with you at all on that. I'm just saying you always have a choice, right?
I agree. I agree with you. But the fact is that number exists, right? We can talk about good decision, bad decision, doesn't matter.
Well, remember you were kicking that around during that time frame. You were saying people are taking bad paper orders for the future.
Yeah, we had a 20-minute conversation about that, Ash. And here we are, and Central Florida, which right now for majority of the Southeast, Central Florida and North Carolina, I mean, those delivered numbers are in the mid fives, right? On stud trims.
Right. And they were $100 less.
Or 480 or whatever that number. Yeah. I mean, you're still stuck between a rock and a hard place, and you're hoping the job gets pushed or it drags out or whatever the case may be. Or actually a fire marshal shows up and doesn't let you do anything else, right?
There was another interesting thing in this article was the guy told the story about saying, I'm going to redesign all my trusses from spruce to yellow pine. And instead of getting a savings, he actually had to pay more money.
So
I'm like,
what?
I have an interesting story about that very same topic.
I don't know.
I have a guy that I've sold for 30 years. And they switched to yellow pine for their trusses, and then they switched back to spruce. And it has nothing to do with price. It's just a matter of the way the performance of it. The yardability, the cull, whatever you want to talk about. But they just found that they were more efficient, even if they paid a little bit more and just kept buying spruce. So interesting. I don't know what that means, if that's true across the whole spectrum, but this is a guy in Texas, and Texas is a prime market for some of this crossover stuff, right? Yeah. Based on cost savings.
Yeah, 110%.
That's it. So, Charles, real quick before we move on, let's talk about the pine market right now. So, I mean, 2x4 pine is slowly the 2x4 market seems to be, stronger, a little bit stronger. A little bit stronger every day. It's inching up, trying to inch up. If I'm reading that Random Lengths, the Fast Market Daily report where they put the daily number out, it looks like it's moving up a little bit every day. Does that make sense on the 4-inch market? The wide markets kind of suck right now.
Well, and see what's interesting from what I've heard, conversations I've had, mills that are cutting, 8-inch, right? Because a lot of mills will rip 8-inch back to forward, but a lot of guys that are cutting 8-inch are actually getting a better price and a better net return than cutting 4-inch, even at $500, because their processing cost is half, right? You get double the board footage per load. So that's another concern that is part of the reason why 4-inch might be tight. If 8-inch drops in your longer lengths, right? Because right now on the east side, 8-inch I think has anywhere from like a $10 to a $25 premium over print. If you return back to a 330, 4-inch is going to get overproduced, and then those prices are going to drop as well. So it's a real interesting conundrum. I think, in the Southern Yellow Pine market as a whole, the market has finally taken hold of all the footage and all the production that was taken off, right? And realizing some of that stuff and where wood flows, especially into Georgia to South Carolina north, is actually happening. But, 4-inch is the only thing that's strong. And if you look at what's happened over the past 18 months, 6-inch has been the canary in the coal mine that's told the story time and time again. 6-inch drops, everything else kind of hangs out for a little bit, and then, it's like catching a falling knife. So it's kind of a weird conundrum because wides are 8-inch specifically is a little bit stronger than people anticipated right now.
So here's a question. We got Greg pointed this out. I think Saturday we were talking in here. Usually the sign of a bottom or a top is when items compress in price. So you look at 2x4 number 3 pine versus 2x4 number 2, it's the same price.
I mean, there's 15, maybe 15, $20.
What gives there? Why would you even buy number 3?
You wouldn't, because your yield is going to make up for that.
Because you need number 3, but you'll settle for number 2 if it's within 10 or 15.
Because you make up for it.
Actually trying to buy number 3.
But you make up for it in yield.
Yeah.
So
there's not enough number 3 yellow pine to go around. If everybody switches, then say goodbye to that SKU.
Yep.
no,
It'll have to turn into number 2.
that's a great point. But I just noticed that on print the other day. I'm like, my God, is it really that tight? Right? I mean, is there any? So just jumping.
Low grade lumber, Ashley, is quietly tightened up across North America the last 90 days, and part of the reason, and nobody wants to really think too deeply about this kind of stuff, but from a manufacturing perspective, you think about all the low grade that was coming out of the beetle killed log in Canada for more than a decade. We would get logs where 30% of it was economy or number 3 or utility or a mill pullout or something that wasn't a grade stamp piece of lumber. It was just fall down. And now that number is 8%. It's more like the inland. So there's just a whole bunch of lumber that used to be made that's not being made anymore. And there's not a mill in North America that wants to make that stuff. We're trying not to make it.
Mills aren't designed to make low grade, right?
I always like when I get the inquiry.
grade-
Can you give me some premium economy?
But Matt, to your
I get
point,
that inquiry.
to your point, you know what else is dried up too? The European no grade stamp.
Yeah, it has. And I was going to ask a question. I was curious. Is you guys, Greg and Ashley and Charles, all have real-time data on import lumber. You're in that business all the time. I want to hear your opinion about the next 60 to 90 days of the imported lumber, biz. Good, bad, indifferent. Is there a lot? Is there a little? I mean, give us all a good, give North America a good spiel here.
Take it away, Lumber Scion, Mr. Riley.
Greg's pretty good at this.
I don't know.
Great answer. That's the best answer. That's a good answer.
No, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of moving parts. If I just look at it from, today's prices as they are, that would tell me that, it's going to continue to flow, pretty steadily. But I mean, we've had this. I mean, here's some realities. Timber prices and log costs are higher in Europe. And so there's pressure on that. There's not any growth in production there. And so, I think I've said this before. I think, kind of what the level of wood that's coming here is what's going to come here. There's not going to be a lot more. There's not going to be a lot less. There's going to be, maybe some fits and starts. And then my caveat to that is, I had an interesting call from one of our suppliers today that said, hey, we're concerned we may have an issue if there's a secondary tariff on using vessels that were manufactured in China. And I was like, wow. Yeah. I mean, and this just gets to that whole unsettledness. I mean, hey, if that's the case, then there's going to be a lot less lumber come here because there's going to be less ability to use those vessels to come to the U.S. Right? I mean, with all of this stuff, there's so many unknown unknowns, and kind of the collateral effective things that unintended consequences of actions. And I mean, Ash, can you get your AI to like game theory this all out? That's what we really need. I mean, my little peanut brain, not good enough to do it. I'm like,
Well, so remember us discussing a mill that shut down some operations due to log costs a couple 3 weeks ago or something?
Yep.
How long was that going into effect? Do we know?
How long is the ramp down?
Yeah.
All depends on what their log deck is and how much rough lumber they have, right?
What
All
the
that.
current-
So there's no data. There's no like firm data that could support a date.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So let me ask a question to everybody here. At these current prices on everything in North America and Europe, are all the mills making money in here right now before there's any tariff put on anything as we sit today?
Yes.
No,
My answer is yes.
no.
I mean, I'm just saying I think it is. Which ones do you think aren't making money, Matt?
Green Doug fir mills, recently were selling below cost of production. And, I'm sure there's some Canadian spruce mills in both East and West that aren't making any money, with high log costs, high labor costs, high transportation costs, high everything costs, and taxes, and a potential tariff. So there's absolutely no way that they're all profitable. I mean,
but there's I'm talking the high end tier mill, the highest cost mills, yeah. And
I just think that there's a chunk of mills. Let's see.
Q3 and Q4 last year.
Well, did you see Fraser's results and that they did their conference call on? I mean, they made all their money on OSB.
Yeah, that was for Q4, right? Not Q1.
Yeah, but I mean, they're not going to make a whole heck of a lot of more money on their sticks in Q1. That they might make a smaller, they might make a little margin better in the South, right? With the bump in prices out of the South, but I don't think they're making any more lumber or any more money in British Columbia or Alberta. Their tax just got raised.
Not yet.
But they haven't paid for it yet.
Not yet. I'm saying as we sit right now, before there's any other tariffs or anything, over the last 3 months, the price of spruce is up significantly. And nothing has changed from the 14 to 24% on a lot of these mills. That's why I say that most of the Canadian mills, most of them are making money. It's the threat of a tariff has made them more money in the last 2 or 3 months. Has made them decent money, better than they were making before. That's my thought. And
it takes them from an outright loss to a chance to break even or make a small margin.
Yeah, and I could be wrong on some of that, but pine mills, Charles, unless you're cutting a lot of wides, I mean, the 4-inch number is tremendous for some of these mills right now, right?
Oh yeah, I mean it is good. I mean,
do the mills in the South that cut wides is that more profitable than the narrows right now, or is it just pump out narrows?
I mean, the return net on 8-inch versus 4-inch is better from that perspective.
Yeah, so let's kick over to the we had the new.
I had one question for Matt first, Ash. Though, 2x12, and then 2x6 also. Hem fir, hemlock, and Doug fir. A lot of pressure. I mean, I think last week's print 2x12 Doug fir was down $110 from the prior week. Has that market stabilized at all, or is it still under pressure?
I believe that the 2x12 problem has resolved itself for the most part, and that lumber that was out there got taken care of.
Okay.
So I would say 2x12 is fine. 2x6 is sort of it's anyone's guess, right? Because Doug fir is a big premium to yellow pine, so the yellow pine is going to win all arguments on job site type stuff, where they'll switch. But then there's also potential constriction out of British Columbia. So if there is any Doug fir production out of BC that would normally hit the market in April, May, June, and there's a tariff, well, then that stuff will be tied up and you're going to see, some inflation on the U.S. species, right? So there's so many moving parts, but the glut of 2x6 is still available. There's still plenty of 2x6 hem fir. there's plenty of 2x6 spruce and there's plenty of 2x6 Doug fir out there to be bought and sold. And I think whether it's you're buying it from me or from some other company in the West, you're going to be able to counter somebody, anywhere from $5 to $25, depending on the tally.
Yeah. It just
What
back
are
to
you
your initial
discounting
question.
$25, Matt? 8 foot?
I mean, it just depends on what your mill pumped out too much of, right? So, like,
Yeah,
look,
yeah.
if you got a bunch of 2x6 18s and 20s and they're worth over 700 Chicago, and somebody
Yeah.
counters you down to 695 Chicago, you're probably going to say yes because it's an overvalued item in the first place, right?
Yep.
You got a bunch of cheap 2x6 14s and you priced them cheap to sell, make them go away at 575 Chicago. Somebody comes in with a $50 counter, you're going to just laugh at them. Those cars will sell at the right price, right? So, I just think that, the problem isn't what's being produced so much in 2x6, it's what's been consumed. There was a big push to buy a lot of 2x6 in the fourth quarter and the first quarter, and people have got it now, right? At the same time, the mills made a bunch of it, and they're still making a bunch of it. And so it's like, that stuff will resolve itself over the next 30 days. There is going to be more demand for 2x6, but we're in that digestion phase. And Greg predicted that 2x4 prices would go above 2x6 prices, and he's Nostradamus on that one. We're there now.
He's 2 for 2, man. I'm gonna ask Nostradamus about the freight market. What's gonna happen next there? Can we talk about that big ugly gorilla in the room? That's a tough one.
I think you're going to have. I think freight is going to continue to be, continue to tighten and continue to move higher in a lot of cases. I mean, one big driver is that we've got more stuff moving around right now, but the other is that and I keep asking this question about the labor in the field. As you put, as there's pressure on undocumented workers, and we've seen this with truck drivers, and I keep waiting for people in the field to tell me, yeah, this job's held up because we don't, because we're down on workers. I mean, it was estimated that somewhere in the neighborhood in the Southeast that 30% were not documented, and
we saw some truck drivers. Heard that they were getting, the fear of getting pulled over in question makes people disappear sometimes.
Right. So I don't know that that's completely been felt, but right now we're in a seasonal, seasonally it gets tighter, March, April, May, and then it kind of starts to loosen up a little bit in the summertime. And I think it's a little tighter now too, because there's a lot of people that are, trying to get things moved around. We're anticipating, rates being elevated for a while going forward.
So just so we bifurcate this thing, is that the right word?
That's a big one.
There's freight that you take that you can't get because you took it too cheap, or there's freight that you took that you can get because you're going to lose money, right? Like you can get a truck. Oh, you just got to pay for it.
It's just like there was never a lumber shortage, right? There was like everybody could get all the lumber they wanted. All they got to do is pay for it. Ashley, you're 100% correct with trucks.
Hold on, let me push my chest in.
Because you pay more. Right?
Let me push my chest in after using the word bifurcate, which I'm sure was wrong, the way I used it.
Hang on. Siri, can you give me the definition of bifurcate?
Well, the one thing we're seeing in the South, doing rate research, some of the steel mills are paying anywhere from 4.25 to 5.25 per mile.
We're going back.
You can't touch that, right? There's no way. And I'm talking, anywhere from 250 miles to 750 miles because they have the ability to pay it because steel prices are up. And that tariff, I don't think is going anywhere due to the lobbying situation in the steel industry in the United States.
Hey, Matt, back to a question you asked like 20 minutes ago. I don't know if we completely answered it. You asked about if the Europeans are going to keep shipping over here. I think the answer is, yes, because when they were getting mid 6s to 7s for 2x4 16s and a decent number on 2x6 16s, I think you're kind of seeing the 2x6 16-foot portion of it now, and a bunch of it showed up, but they're going to keep shipping stuff over here, I believe.
Well, I get the impression just from the people that I've talked to that are telling me what they have coming, or they're offering me things, which I do buy this stuff. I just don't buy it as much as you guys do. But I'm also hearing a much wider variety of product SKUs coming across the water right now, like 2x12, long lengths, Doug fir only, bunch of weird trim studs like the 12-foot and 11-foot trims, things like that. So in the past, it's been heavy to 2x4 16s, 2x4 12s, 2x6 16s, and then your 2x4 and 2x6 8s, 9s, and 10s. We've just gotten flooded with those products over, in some years. This year doesn't seem like that to me from sort of like the 3-5 mile above looking down sort of picture that I have.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, the two.
I think that's a good point, Matt. And and that's in producers looking and saying, hey, how do I get a better return than just because they have higher log costs, and they're not they're same thing as where they had a bug kill timber that they just wanted to run that stuff through. Yeah, I think that's a good observation.
Yeah, good point. Want to jump in to talk about, we had the new contract launched on Monday. Southern Yellow Pine, 2x4 truck, east side, cash settled. We jumped in, traded some. I saw the Do It Best. Looks like they were the first trade. Congratulations, Do It Best. Good job. What did we open at? It's been a wide bid-ask spread. I know there's going to be some market makers in there. I think a lot of people are sitting back wondering how to trade it. What's your thoughts on the market? On the news?
Yeah. Go ahead, Charles. You want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are playing the wait and see game on that too, to kind of see who's going to participate. And CME's done a good job, kind of put it in front of everybody. But I mean, you look at it today, there's no volume. And I mean, you look at market participation as a whole over the past 2 weeks, and it's all light volume. So I think there's a lot of people that are disengaged from that standpoint right now. They have their risk management tool in place, and they have had it, or they rolled, right? And they're just sitting here waiting for things to kind of be less unknown, less murky. And then they'll step in and participate. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, zero volume today. The bid ask is $15 to $30. Yeah, I mean, they need to need to do something to add some liquidity to that. And I guess when I look at it, my question is, if you're an East Side producer, I would think that $500 would be the best price that you've gotten for a long time on 2x4s, and that you should be will be willing to be a scale up seller between 500 and 600.
You would think so, but once again, there's an education piece that has to go into it.
Right. So it was interesting because I put my poll out again. Always like keeping it out. Where is my poll? Hang on. I looked at it this morning. It closed, and I guess the most interesting thing was what were the final numbers in LinkedIn. Sorry, guys. The final numbers, I guess the most significant was over 50% either said they don't trade futures or they need more information.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was basically Charles was a seller, and everybody else said they wanted to buy it, but they're obviously not that aggressively buying it.
No, education is the biggest piece.
Yeah, but if you're one of the big Canadian mills at EFP Spruce, you don't need any education on it. And you're the highest potential volume that owns wood in the South. They could trade it today, right? In EFP it. But I guess the real question is, who's going to be the first person to EFP it, the Southern Pine contract?
Yeah. Well,
I'm guessing
now
you
got
and Charles.
Right now you got a grand total of open interest of 8. So you got a ways to go.
We're a big part of that open interest right now. That's probably
Yeah,
the largest percentage of open interest.
Significant part of the open interest. Yes.
You know what, Greg? I mean, it's a good opportunity to go out and forward sell 2x4 number 2 Southern Yellow Pine. If none of the mills want to do it, you just go out and do it on the board. Because there's a lot of truss manufacturing plants that I bet would buy a lot of those prices, some of those prices forward on that.
I mean, you're in the same. Yeah, I mean, you're in the same question of liquidity is hey, if I needed to buy 100 trucks on the board, what would I run the price up to? 550, right? Until there's some liquidity, it's the challenge is using it for anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
110%, Greg. Nostradamus strikes again.
It's a chicken and an egg situation. You know what? You need the liquidity to get people to want to be more involved in it and increase the volume. And
didn't you have something to do with the beginning of the spruce contract, Greg?
I personally did not, but
Ted did.
Ted Block was.
So talk about how that happened and how long it took to get it to really go.
Matt, that's a freaking great question.
Great question, and I'd have to do a little bit more research on it. You're back. That was in the 70s, and
why don't you?
And I don't know what the volume.
Let's have a story time with Greg Riley at some point.
A fireside chat.
Well, Greg, it started out as a U.S. species contract. I thought.
Right. It started out. It was a hem fir contract.
And then the Canadian spruce took over, and it went to 80,000, then 112,000 board foot cars.
And at one point, I mean, open interest was 15, 20,000 carloads, right? I mean, at one point the open interest was very, very substantial. And yeah, we could have a whole segment on, old lumber contract stories of grandeur. Yeah, there's a lot. We could do a lot with that. That'd be a nice walk down memory lane, Matt.
Well, so here's my challenge to everybody that talked to the CME and helped promote the contract and wanted it. Trade it, put a bids and asks in, and support it, because risk management tools like this don't come along very often. So I would figure out how to look at the daily pricing. I mean, Fast Markets has that daily price every day now. It's audited, basically price, and they've got an update of why it's going on. And you can look at the delayed price on the CME website. I've asked them if they could put up a real-time price for a short period of time. We'll see if that happens. But
they really should. I mean, if you want to promote a new contract, you should do an all the above strategy.
Well, I mean, but here's my. Everybody that trade, I would say 80% of the people that trade this from the both markets, from the cash side, have to pick up the phone call to call somebody to execute their trade for them. They don't have their own computer on their desk to execute their own trades. So my challenge to everybody is, whether you're going to do that, you should have a real-time system on your own desk and learn how to trade it yourself. And learn how to answer a bunch of your own questions. It's fine asking people and helping have support, but for it to be successful, we need more speculators, market makers, and people that trade on a daily basis in there and figure out how to make. But I agree, Charles. People are sitting back, waiting for the market to. They're waiting for somebody else to do something. And my history in life has been that never works out.
Well, I think I agree with you in most aspects of life, but in this scenario, as Greg said, if you have a lack of liquidity, it's not really a tool, right? It's something you look at on a board, right? If you have market participants, that's when you can actually use it. And I think as a collective, kind of the price discrepancies or the sweet spot that everybody's looking for, this where it's starting price wise doesn't give them any value, right? Does that make any sense at all?
It depends upon what you're looking for in a trade, right?
I agree with you. Yeah. But I mean, if you're looking at it from a standpoint of, okay, I'm going to use this to hedge my price risk. I'm short cash, so I'm going to go long the board. Well, it's underwritten. You can look at it from a basis play, and once again, that's an educational standpoint, right? I mean, if you look at 500 right now, right, and then you look at the basis between 500 and 2 by 6 12 and longer, number 2 Southern Yellow Pine, that basis is relatively large, right? But people have to understand how to monetize that and what value that brings to them.
So you could buy the 2x6 and sell the 2x4
contract.
Contract.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Great way to do it. I mean, you could do EFPs on your cash contracts. You could do all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see. And also, if somebody has any questions, they should contact the CME and tell them, what'll help on it. And
110%. I think going straight to the horse's mouth and asking those questions like you described,
yeah,
right, it would be key to increase market participation for sure.
I wonder if there'll be anybody at the Montreal show representing,
they're all
where they could actually have real time conversations with our industry. There's going to be a lot of big hitters walking around that floor there for a couple days. So get them early. Don't do it at midnight.
Yeah, no doubt. So you guys want to jump into some a little Mary date and dump here, and
I
talk
will.
about what
I
we
will
got.
go. I will do that. I will go first.
What do you got, Matt?
I'm marrying and dating just 2x4 in general. I think that the mills have completely flipped the switch on the 2x6 thing and 2x4 because of a lack of availability and because of the conundrum that we're facing with tariff on, tariff off. One day this, one day that. Nobody really knows. That is really, I mean, I'm admitting publicly, I could buy some more 2x4 for my inventory if I got the right opportunity, right? And I've been buying all along. So I mean, there's definitely, I believe that there's demand there, and I think that 2x4 is going to be sought after here. So I want to kind of marry and date at the same time.
If you can sell 700 against it, I mean, you're lucky if there's $50 pieces there. So, I mean, you've got to.
Well, I like the idea of species swapping. This is something I've done my whole career. And I started out in 1994 learning how to trade hemlock in lieu of white fir, and then it switched over to pond pine in lieu of spruce. I mean, there's just been so much species swapping for me at my desk for so long that it's just natural. And I think a potential tariff forces people to do more and accept more on the species swapping thing also, right? So this doesn't really bother me so much. It's just it's kind of like returning back to the old way that we used to sell lumber, where you just sold somebody some 2x4. But then as far as the things that I want to dump, I still have a little bit, not a lot. I have whittled down my pile of beaks and feathers to a very small pile. And I want to finish the job in the month of April. I've got about 15, 20 more trucks of material that I'm going to sell at the economy price and be done with. And, I've got my mind right, and I'm ready to finish the job there. But the last 2 months was a bit painful, but not quite as painful as I thought it was going to be back in January, just because we've gotten a little bit better prices than I thought. So that's been working. And, but I want to finish that job in April. If anybody's got some 2x4 and 2x6 short econ needs, come and find me. I'll hook you up.
All right. I'm married to, reducing our inventory, as we were talking this morning, at some places, and working from a lower, faster turning inventory, getting rid of, like, as Matt likes to say, the beaks and the feathers. And in these markets, like we had the last 3 or 4 months, we have a tendency to spread stuff all around. And, hey, I like this. I like this. I like this. Let's put it here, here, and here. And then you got some stuff left over that you want to pare down and go back to where your real core base of customers and items are. And I think with the uncertainty in actual demand, which I think is going to be okay yet slowing, I think that's just a prudent way to do things. Dating, I'm still dating Southern Yellow Pine number 2. and I'm looking at dating some of the higher grades in 2x4 Southern Yellow Pine 4-inch, and looking at dating some of the higher value items in 2x6 and some wides, like the number ones and things like that, just because I think they're at a lower end, and now I have an ability to hedge them if we can. And dumping, I'm not dumping it because it's I guess I'm dumping it because, like I said, it's not a unicorn. It's on the crazy hot matrix 2x12 spruce that we just landed some of that. It's a beautiful product, but it just may be too much for me to handle. So I'm I mean, it's a hard. It runs hard and fast. It runs hard and fast. Carries a big premium on it all the time, and it's got a very small list of people that want to.
Are you saying that it's high maintenance?
Yeah, it's high maintenance.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not.
And the feedback that we get from all the people that we probably bought because they didn't want it, they still want to date it again, but they don't have any of it. So they tell everybody that we have it now. So that's my thought there. Anyway, that's where I want to be at.
I'm very fluid. I don't know if I'm convicted in anything. I mean, 6-inch is at a good place for investment levels. You got great basis if you were to hedge it with the board. 6-inch is a good buy. And I think, the unknowns kind of wash any sort of conviction out of my my playbook right now, because it's very difficult to make a decision long term.
Greg, Carl's got me all geeked up on this one now. Now I want to buy 2x6 pine and sell the board.
Go ahead. Come on. Why don't we EFP it? There you go, Ash. Come on now. Practice what you preach. You don't want to wait for everybody else to do it.
Oh, I want to own a position first.
So
I like how Charles uses your ego as a selling tactic. That's awesome.
Works pretty well.
Just taps right into your ego. Oh, you don't want somebody else to do it before you.
Just real quick, there was a girl at the gym the other day doing more weight than I was doing. And the guy I was working out next to said, "Hey, what do you think about that?" I'm like, at my age, my ego, I really don't care. Like,
yeah. And he goes, "Yeah, you're lying."
Yeah, I was, but I didn't care. I would have otherwise. I would have grabbed heavier weights and probably blown a hernia out or something.
Yeah. So I'm moving towards, like I said, we talked about, hey, 2x6 was $200 above 2x4 16s 6 months ago. We've come in and now, we've had a $300 swing in that product. And, I'm looking, whether it's 2x6, European, or, we've been buying, we were buying quite a bit of 2x6 Eastern at, some pretty hefty discounts when Mills wanted to ship stuff prior to this week, and it's borderline, it's hedgeable level for sure. Right. I mean, but borderline in getting to be in, investment level. Yeah. I mean, we're going to probably take a hard look at some more 2x6, yellow pine and add that to, kind of what we've been doing. I will say one thing that was interesting is in the 2x4 pine, I have a customer up in Northeast that flips between, it takes spruce or pine, whatever's cheapest. And so obviously for the last, out of the longest time, pine has been cheaper. And then all of a sudden on a few of the links, not 2x4 16s, but on a few of the other links, they're basically almost the same price now. And in one case, I think one of them is actually cheaper. So that's something I'm going to really, really watch. And I mean, that can change real quick, but the potential governor for 2x4. So
that's a good point.
We're that's as the number one podcast for the lumber industry. People have told me that there are other podcasts, and imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery. So we are flattered. But we'll be doing a live show next week at the Montreal Wood Convention. It's going to be a very interesting time up there.
Yeah, be on your
The
best
discussions are
behavior
gonna
and
be-
represent America well. I won't be there. I'm going to miss you guys. I hope you have a great time. If you run into Ryan Miller or Tyler Alaric, say hi.
We will. I think we should all. I think Charles should bring us up 3 pairs of those pants that Mitchell had to wear up there.
American flag pants. They won't let us
Yeah,
in security. Ash.
yeah.
Let's
you
leave
know-
the pit. Let's not pick fights, okay? I'm non-confrontational at best.
Well, I'll wear one. I'll get the
I'm
maple
cool.
leaf. I'll get the maple leaf pants then. You guys wear the American flag ones.
I'll wear my jean jacket.
Yeah. No, I'll all right. Hey, listen, guys. Awesome. Great seeing you. Matt, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right, boys.